3, 2, 1.
To pursue science is not to disparage the things of the spirit. In fact, to pursue science rightly is to furnish the framework on which the spirit may rise.
Welcome to the Endless Frontiers, your home for all things science fiction and science fiction. I'm your host, Jed Morgan, and thank you so much for joining me for episode 2 of the Write or Flight podcast. I think we have an excellent show for all of you at home today, particularly when it comes to the space news. There's some exciting things coming out of the asteroid Bennu that we're finally getting data from after a rover collected some samples from it several years ago, but also a little entertainment news because we have to include things from both the pop culture and the scientific spheres. But thank you all so much for joining me once again. We are live across Kick and Twitch and Rumble and of course YouTube. And I hope you all enjoy it wherever you're watching. Hail Dr. Rachel Morgan over on the YouTube side. Welcome, fellow nerds. Yes, there are a lot of nerds over here. Thank you for joining me. And of course, Legatus Legionist is also in the chat. I think we're going to have a great show. But if you haven't checked it out yet, please check out Saturday Night Drive-In from this last week, where Adam the Renaissance Nerd and I discussed Interstellar. We had an excellent conversation about that film. It's available on my channel or on his. We dove into the film. I talked a lot about the science of the film, but together we talked about the writing, and I think you'll all enjoy that stream, so definitely go check that out. Without further ado, let's jump into the topics of the day. So if anyone's been following the news over the last week or watching the streams I've been a part of on Adam the Renaissance Nerd's channel or Jeremy Wormy's channel, you'll know that the Warner Brothers deal is quickly coming to a close. There, however, is a wrench being thrown in, a spanner in the works. So Warner Brothers put itself up for sale a few months ago. Paramount was the first people to come out and put in a bid, trying to latch onto that after they were recently acquired by Skydance only a few months before that. Then other people started throwing their hats in the ring, including Universal, some Saudi Arabia investors, and Netflix, surprisingly enough. And we found out this last week that Netflix had the winning bid. There's still a lot to go through. There's still a lot of government approvals. The deal is signed, but it's not finalized yet. Anything can happen, and something crazy did happen. We have this story from the IndieWire talking about Paramount's attempt to perform a hostile takeover and win Warner Brothers out from under Netflix's feet. So with the Netflix deal, there is a $5 billion breakup fee. So no matter how this all works out, if Netflix doesn't get their hands on Warner Brothers gets $5 billion of Netflix money. and that's a large sum that a lot of people are interested in. But Paramount is dedicated to getting Warner Brothers and that Netflix fee. They're doing a hostile takeover. So for those of you who don't know, a normal sell is what you saw Netflix doing. Warner Brothers put itself up for auction. Netflix offered a bid that was accepted. The deal was finalized, and all that information was put out in the contract. A hostile takeover, on the other hand, is when another company isn't able to purchase it outright like they would otherwise want to. So they go directly to the different investors and shareholders of a company, buying out individual shares, individual stocks of the company to try to get a controlling share, which means they can do whatever they want with the company. They effectively own it if they can control enough shares. And that's exactly what's happening. Paramount is offering $108 billion to control Warner Brothers. That's quite larger than Netflix's $87 billion deal. There's so much money on the table. And I don't know who I want to win in this scenario. Netflix, I do believe, is the worst case scenario of potential buyers. But if Paramount is this desperate, I don't know what's going on. Why are they so desperate to purchase Warner Brothers, especially after they were recently acquired by Skydance? Skydance shouldn't be spending this much money and dealing with another merger in the midst of the Paramount merger. That is so much to deal with at one time. And $108 billion is an astronomical sum. We're going to see a lot of chaos ahead. We're going to see the Warner Brothers being dragged back and forth between Netflix and Skydance Paramount. Hopefully, it all works out in the end. I'd rather Paramount get it than Netflix at this point, but these are not great scenarios. Warner Brothers hopefully can remain independent. That's not going to happen, but that is the best case scenario because Warner Brothers has a rich history in cinema for a century. We don't want to keep seeing this consolidation of studios. You don't want to keep seeing Amazon's buying MGM's or Disney's buying 20th Century Fox. The more this happens, the more it's going to happen, and the less independent the filmmaking sphere will be. I'm quite disappointed that the sale is even happening, but I do like that the Netflix deal is at least in question at this point. Hopefully, it can be destroyed by this. Whether or not Paramount gets it in the end, hopefully Netflix doesn't. So that's all we have to say on that one. Just had to mention it, of course, because of how much I've talked about the merger on different shows. If you want more details of the Netflix deal, check out the roundtable yesterday on Adam the Renaissance Nerd's channel, where we broke down that offer in a lot more detail. There's nothing more to really talk about with the Paramount deal, just the fact that they're attempting a hostile takeover. We knew that was a potential last week, but now it's actually happening. So we'll have to see how all this plays out going forward. That's the first initial story we're going to talk about. A little bit of a warm up to get us in the mood while we switch over to the other story, which is a lot more scientific and very fascinating, in my opinion. Exciting news. Not everyone's going to like it because it's coming out of China versus the United States or a Western company, but they're doing some exciting science over in China. So I had to talk about their advancements in quantum computers. Before I do that, if anybody has anything they want me to review for this show or talk about, react to a video or anything like that, please send in a super chat and I will redirect the content of the stream as you all see fit in the wonderful, wonderful chat. But let's talk about quantum computers a little bit before we dive into the specific news of what's coming out of China with quantum computers. For those of you unaware, quantum computers are the next generation of supercomputers that are going to be coming out. They're far from being everyday uses. You're not going to see a quantum computer in your house for many, many, many decades at this point because of a lot of issues with it that this Chinese research actually addresses. But they're founded upon principles of quantum physics, a complicated subject that directly contradicts normal laws of physics in our everyday reality. It's built on a lot of science from the works of Einstein and other people. In fact, there was a scientist in the late 1800s, I don't remember the name specifically, who was really the first scientist to pose the idea that the quantum world is there and that it exists separate from our known structures. He saw a snowflake. And as everybody knows, a snowflake is unique. They all have the same intricate pattern, though. The model of a snowflake is set, but the execution of a snowflake is varied in infinite possibilities. So when he was looking at the snowflake, he thought, what's the underlying structure that makes it come out in these shapes, these known snowflake shapes? And yet it still comes out unique. posing the idea that there was something beyond human sight, something below and smaller than we could perceive, and that led to a lot of interesting science developing into quantum theory, the discovery of atoms, and everything that consists of an atom. But quantum computers, they take advantage of these quantum particles and what are called qubits. So anyone who's ever heard of Schrodinger's cat is actually familiar with quantum theory and don't even realize it. So Schrodinger's cat is a thought experiment that says, hey, if you put a cat in a box with a sealed vial of poison and shut it, you can't hear anything coming out of it. You just know there's a cat with poison. Simultaneously, the cat is alive and dead because you don't know. The cat might have broken open the vial. The vial could also be triggered to release at a random point as well. That cat, for all intents and purposes, is alive and dead in superposition between two facts. And only by opening the box, by measuring the life of the cat, can we know if the cat is alive or dead, destroying the superposition. Same thing exists with particles. Particles are incredibly difficult at this level, at the quantum level, to nail down, whether or not they're orientated certain ways, spinning certain ways, where their position is. Heisenberg uncertainty principle comes in. It's so difficult to nail down where they're at. So when you don't know where they're at or what they're doing, where they're spinning, the way they're oriented, they're in superposition. They could be one or either things. Quantum computers take advantage of this by using quantum particles in these superposition states to record data, similar to how bits are in a traditional computer. Well, a year ago or something like that, the Google Willow quantum chip smashes classification, a classical supercomputer, by 10 septillion years in test. So quantum computers are incredibly more advanced than supercomputers. This is just a little bit of a background on quantum computers. The Willow chip is one of the leading quantum computers out there. It's done some impressive things. Google says this Willow chip is able to complete a specific quantum task in 5 minutes that would take one of our fastest supercomputers 10 septillion years. It's a task created specifically for quantum computers, but it still shows what's possible. So this test that they presented this quantum computer with, and other quantum computers as well, is so intricate, so difficult, that the best non-quantum computers in existence right now would take 10 septillion years to accomplish. That's longer than the current lifespan of the universe, which is recorded at 13.8 billion years. This is a massive leap forward in computing power. The problem with quantum computers, unfortunately, though, is their instability. These qubits that make up quantum computers are incredibly sensitive. They can be affected by simple touch, by electromagnetic noise. Anything can make them decohere, which means their quantum lattices fall apart and the information is degraded. So they can exist in very controlled, very carefully controlled laboratory environments. They're far from being used in a home. Just existing in a home without protective shielding would make a quantum computer decohere and you'd lose everything on it. That's why we're still very far away from a quantum computer being a practical option for a lot of people. Even being used as servers or anything like that, we're still far away. We can't guarantee their stability. Until now, with this research coming from a Chinese scientist. But we have the story here from SMP.com saying Chinese scientists create super stable building block for quantum computers. Now, like I was saying, the biggest problem with quantum computers is their vulnerability. This attempts to address that. Chinese physicist and his team have created a quantum Lego block that refuses to fall apart, even when shaken. I love the comparison to a Lego block with this, because as anyone knows, building Legos or even just building bricks, using small self-contained units working together creates a much stronger structure than a single entity. So a single slab stone wall is nowhere near as stable as a brick wall when done correctly, of course. And Legos are a perfect example of this. If you had one Lego standing up on its side, it's going to be blown, it's going to be easy to be toppled, and there's so much it could be vulnerable to, but it's a much stronger structure when you have these bricks working together. So, of course, just as a nerd as well, I love the comparison to a Lego block. But using a programmable quantum processor, Han's team has simulated an exotic new state of matter where quantum effects are locked into the corners of a material. According to a paper published in the peer-reviewed science journal on Friday, these corner states are protected by the deep laws of topology, a kind of quantum armor against errors and noise. They're developing new states of matter, creating new matter to contain these quantum lattices and these qubits that make them far more stable. And they're putting these matters into blocks that work together as a full quantum computer. This is an absolutely brilliant step forward in the realm of quantum computers, and one step closer to quantum computers becoming practical. A lot of people are concerned that this is a Chinese company versus a Western company, and this might see the rise in Eastern science getting far and more advanced than Western science. I'm just here for science. That's what I'm interested in, and I hope they share this technology with the world. Otherwise, it does become a problem, because the only way that we can advance as a species if we all lift each other. Rising seas lift all ships, but only if we allow it to in this case. So I'm all for this research as long as it's shared. I worry that the Chinese government won't allow it to be shared, though. This kind of matter, which does not exist in nature, could allow for quantum computers to operate correctly, even in the presence of error or noise, which is the current limitation of the machine complexity, owing to the sensitivity of quantum bits, qubits, the fundamental units of quantum information, also known as qubits, to their environment. So not only are these much more stable systems, they're able to operate with more error. So in a normal quantum computer, if enough qubits decohere, the whole thing falls apart and the system no longer becomes stable and all data is lost. This is making that threshold of universal decoherent, pushing it back, making it so that the computers can handle more issues, can handle more noise and more errors. I think this whole situation is absolutely fascinating. I use quantum computers in my written work, specifically in Iris. In Iris, there's a quantum computer at the heart of Iris 3 that has an artificial personality put into it called Iris as well. So I've researched a lot of this, and this is the next step forward to make things like Iris aboard the Iris 3 possible. And this is just incredibly exciting. I know this won't interest as many people out there as it does me. This is the future of technology. This is the future of computers. And we're one step closer to doing that because we're creating new states of matter. We're just a brilliant species. And this is great evidence to that. So I'm very much excited for this going forward. I think this might be a good opportunity, though, to thank our sponsor for this stream, Plotter. This video is sponsored by Plotter. Every writer knows the drill. Staring at a blank page, characters ghosting you mid-plot, timelines unraveling like a bad sweater. That endless loop of what happens next, sucking the joy out of your story. I lived it. Outlines and chaos, competing storylines driving me mad. For the longest time, my notes were thick, blocked-out paragraphs, and my outlines were never-ending bullet points that stretched for more pages than my first drafts. Then I found Plotter, my plotting lifeline. Visual timelines that snap into place, drag-and-drop scenes to tame the wildest arcs, character sheets that keep everyone on track. It turned my latest novel, a 200,000-word juggernaut with multiple character perspectives and solar systems worth of lore, into an easy-to-understand, trackable project, complete with a series bible, multi-track storylines, and lore documents that make world-building a breeze. And check out their latest feature, a seamless note-taking system for all those story and character ideas that don't have a home yet. Available for free to all users of the Plotter app. For pro users, your notes and files will automatically sync across devices with cloud storage. If you're tired of the plot purgatory, use my link or scan the QR code to get Plotter for life with a single payment of $150. Your epic won't write itself, but with Plotter it'll flow like never before. Link in the description. Let Plotter help you conquer your stories. Frank over in the YouTube chat says, thought Jed would admit to his at least illicit quantum computer in his basement. I would love to have a quantum computer hid in my basement. It would be illicit, it would be doing some weird things, and I would not hide it. I should. If I had a quantum computer in my basement, people would be knocking on my door, demanding it, trying to steal it. I would brag about that shit way too much. Quantum computers are incredible. I'm fascinated by the technology. Quantum science is a large departure from typical physics. It seems to contradict with everything we know about nature, the way that everything works. So the fact that we have provable depictions of this different type of physics in quantum computers is fascinating. What other layers to reality are there? What other types of physics that seemingly contradict our known laws of physics are there? There could be things on the macro scale that we can't even comprehend. Could systems be utilizing solar systems and galaxies the same way that we see atoms interacting with each other? Could there be higher levels of matter and existence and physics? It's just fascinating to me that we were able to delve so deep into the building blocks of reality to find where our laws of physics broke down. I hope to find someday that we find that there's something in the other direction, that there are other layers. It's just absolutely fascinating to me. So yeah, I would brag about it. Quantum computers could do insane things, make my job a lot easier. I could stream with perfect quality. I believe that there is a little bit of a frame rate issue going on the stream right now on the YouTube end. I'm not sure if that's on YouTube end or mine, but it would help solve a lot of those issues, processing power, rendering issues. I'd be able to render videos in milliseconds versus minutes. The advancements of quantum computers cannot be oversold. They were able to do a problem, solve a test in the Willow chip that would take supercomputers 10 septillion years, and they accomplished that task in 5 minutes. That is a leap forward never before seen in technology or science. Yes, we've seen what's often called the 5,000-year leap with technology over the last century. We were barely getting off the ground flying 100 years ago with the Wright brothers, a little more than a century. And 40, 50 years after that, we were sending people to the moon. That level of advancement is absolutely incredible. That's why they call it the 5,000-year leap. We've had 5,000 years worth of technological development in such a short span. But in quantum computers, that makes the advancement from flying to space travel seem minuscule. The leap forward is like nothing we've ever seen. In quantum computers, the moment that they're practical, the moment that research like this makes quantum computers available in our homes, nothing is off the table. Nothing at all. We could solve problems that are just too large for us to comprehend. The maths, if nothing else, would become simpler, and we'd be able to calculate things beyond human ability at this point. Quantum computers are really the step forward in not just technology, not just in computers, but in human and societal evolution. They're a stepping stone to the universe. And I'm very excited to see how all of it plays out. Someday we'll get quantum computers in our home. Sometimes we'll get them in our spacecraft and everything like that. And this is such a beautiful and impressive step towards accomplishing that. Qubits, I don't think I sold it well in that video portion or the article portion. They're so sensitive. You could almost breathe on qubits and they would decohere, ruining the quantum lattices. But if there is a way to make Lego bricks of self-contained qubit units, new states of matter working together, creating a firm structure, and being able to deal with more noise, more errors, operating with basically bullet holes in it, and still moving forward, we're going to see an explosion of quantum computers. A lot of people are talking about the advancement of AI as the thing that's going to change the world this century and define this century. I don't believe that. AI isn't anywhere near as advanced as a lot of people think. It's not very good at adapting or learning. It's excellent at doing what we tell it to do, but it's not good at improvising. So it's not going to be a core technology for many years to come while it advances. But quantum computers, they can change our civilization overnight, taking us to places that we can't possibly currently imagine. And of course, they work together as well. An AI inside a quantum computer would have the capacity to be more advanced and intricate than even a human brain, I believe. So they do, of course, work together. But no one's talking about quantum computers. They're so obsessed with AI. And I think that is actually a fault of science fiction. Science fiction has set up AI to be this frightening antagonist. So there are lines being drawn in the sand. People consumed by fear because of the entertainment that they watch, that they can't imagine anything being more frightening than AI. or being more advanced or impressive than AI. People are taking AI to extremes in every direction, forgetting about the incredible science that's being done in other areas that can be far more impactful to us as a species, including quantum computers, space travel, and everything else that we're trying to. AI is a magic act. It's distraction. And I don't love how focused our society's become on AI the last few years. We should be focused to quantum computers in this AI. Hail Wiley Dave over on the kick side got a few bots. If you don't mind, Wiley Dave, I can actually make you a mod over there on the kick side to take care of those because you're always in the chat and you're absolutely trustworthy. The bots on the kick side are absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why Kick is not addressing their bot situation. It's one of the worst platforms for bots that I've ever seen. Let me just see if I can take care of that in community section roles. Here we go. He also asked, have you heard of Project Blue Beam? Project Blue Beam. I'm not familiar with Blue Beam. Does that have anything to do with quantum computers or something like that? Let me look that up in just a moment. Just trying to add you as a moderator. All right, it's not coming up with your at, unfortunately, Wiley Dave. See, your at should just be Wiley Dave. Dave. All right, so it's not coming up right now. I'll save that window open and try to add you at another time, Wiley Dave. But I appreciate you hanging out on the kick side. You're always so interactive on the kick side, keeping that side of the channel alive, and I absolutely appreciate it. Let me look up Project Blue Beam real quick, though. Project Blue Beam. Project Blue Beam. It comes from Sergei Monast, who was a Canadian conspiracy theorist. He's mostly known for his promotion of the Blue Beam conspiracy. Okay, so it's a conspiracy theory centered around UFOs. I don't really believe that UFOs are as big of a problem as other people say. If aliens were here, why are they being so subtle about it? And most UFOs can be explained by natural phenomena because UFO doesn't mean alien. UFOs literally mean unidentified flying object. It just means you don't know what it is yet. So it could be a Air Force plane. It could be a spacecraft. It could be a satellite. Satellites get mistaken for UFOs all the time. So it just means we don't know what it is. It can be figured out though. It can be attributed to many natural phenomenon as well, like with the Northern Lights. Some people have confused those for UFOs, shockingly. But yeah, if Blue Beam is a conspiracy about UFOs, I wouldn't tend to believe it. But we can look at it real fast. The Wikipedia article on Sergey isn't in depth. There's a CIA article listed for Project Blue Beam. It centers around electronic reading room. There's not a whole lot of information coming up for Project Blue Beam, unfortunately, Wiley Dave. Identified flying objects and Air Force Project Blue Book. That doesn't seem to be good. Yeah, I don't believe in UFOs. I don't believe that aliens have actually visited Earth. I do believe aliens exist, but we've had such a hard time noticing them, even though we should. So, for those of you who aren't aware, there's such a thing in the scientific community called the Fermi paradox. It talks about how, given the quick rise of life on Earth, because we evolved quickly on Earth, and just life in general evolved very quickly in the lifespan of Earth after the initial formation of the sun and the Earth itself, that it should be common in the universe. And we have the technologies now to be able to detect at least technological signatures of life in our nearby galaxy. But we're not seeing anything. And that's where the paradox comes in. The evidence and the reasonable supposition that there is nearby alien life is contradicted by the complete lack of evidence of verifiable alien technology. technosignatures. There are a lot of different explanations for this. There's the zoo hypothesis that is basically aliens avoid us, that they see us as an oddity and just avoid us entirely. There's another that I really like called the Great Filter. In the evolution of a species, there are many filters that are thresholds for their advancement. Like the development of life itself is a massive threshold, and then achieving mitosis, being able to split cells apart, is another big threshold. And then there are social ones with humans, primitive humans, learning to work together as units, whether or not that's family or just cultural community based. So there's all these filters that we as a species have passed to get to this point. The great filter theory poses that there's another filter that we haven't come to yet, or perhaps may have passed and not even realized it, that is a great obstacle to the emergence of life, at least intelligent life, on a galactic scale. What could that be? Be anything from electromagnetic fields to the instability of solar systems, asteroid impacts, anything like that could be the potential great filter. But that theory says that it's so hard for life to become interplanetary that uh, hasn't happened in a lot of different places. There's too many obstacles in the way. And I do need to clarify the Fermi paradox. It also includes we developed quickly in our solar system, but Earth developed late in the grand lifespan of the universe. So it took us a little bit amount of time to do so much, and we came about late in the process of the universe. So there's so many different segments where the same development could have been accomplished in other solar systems. There's so much time to do something that takes so little time. It seems that it should have happened in many, many different places in the galaxy. Wiley Dave said they are planning to have a fake alien invasion to bring in a one world government, use of holograms and DEWs. I don't believe that. A fake alien invasion is not something that you can just fake with the sleight of hand. And holograms are technically possible through AR and when there's a projections background like fog or something like that. But holograms as seen in Star Trek and Star Wars and stuff like that, we don't have that current technology. So using a technology that doesn't exist to fake worldwide sightings of UFOs, I I don't believe that. The problem with these documentaries that you're mentioning as well, Wiley Dave, they don't provide sources. It's a bunch of supposed insiders just saying, "Hey, I heard someone say something once." I don't believe that there's aliens here. I don't believe that the government is going to be able to fake a mass alien invasion to create a one world government. I definitely don't believe there are portals to other universes created by CERN. CERN isn't as scary as a lot of people think. Particle accelerators don't generate a whole lot of energy. In fact, they consume it at immense rates. To create portals and stuff like that, you need more power than the human species is currently capable of generating on a mass scale. Like if all the power that humanity has ever generated were put together into one point uh, to power one machine, it would it would dwarf in comparison to what is needed to punch a hole in space time or anything like that. So we don't have the capacity to do anything crazy like that, and CERN doesn't generate energy. It doesn't generate it at all. In fact, it does the opposite. So with accelerators, people hoped that it could be used as a form of energy, like to fuel spacecraft and stuff like that. The only way that something like that could be used is through there's a theory that you could enrich nuclear fusion material through particle acceleration, but that's more firing neutrons, I believe, at potential radioactive material to enrich it and make it usable fuel. That's the closest that we found of using particle accelerators to develop fuel and develop power. There's nothing else that a particle accelerator does that would be able to accomplish the things that people are saying. It's not creating fusion, it's not creating fission, it's not doing anything like that. So particle accelerators, especially CERN, is nothing to be concerned about. It's fascinating. I love researching particle accelerators. Iris and actually all my books use particle accelerators. in different ways than has been theorized to power spacecraft. I actually do use them to power spacecraft, but it's because of a new element, exoticum, that was discovered in my book universe, and using principles of quantum entanglement and stuff like that. So the particle accelerator in my story isn't generating power, but it's being used as a vehicle to create a bridge for power. I go into a lot of detail in the books about that, but yeah, CERN isn't anything to be concerned about. There's no interdimensional portals, unfortunately. Propaganda to persevere. If we had the technology to actually fake an alien invasion, we could they could absolutely do a plan like that and create a one world government. If we had the technology, I believe that that is something that could happen and is within the realm of possibility. But our technology is at a point right now where it's not possible, and we're so interconnected as a species with cell phones and the internet and stuff like that that a mass lie like that would be so hard to maintain, and you would have to have sightings around the entire globe. Just the practicality of it is an immense hurdle to get over, but more importantly, we don't have the technology. We don't. We don't have particle weapons. We don't have spacecraft that can go beyond our solar system. We don't have holograms. Effectively go beyond our solar system, because of course there's the Voyager probes that have gone beyond our solar system after decades and decades of travel. But yeah, these are conspiracy theories for a reason, and I enjoy conspiracy theories as in entertainment value. Like I watch a lot of flat Earth videos, not because I believe flat Earth, very much the opposite, but it's fascinating to me to see the different arguments for them, and I see them as entertainment. So something like this is fun to theorize about, but there's just never enough evidence to support these wild claims that the world governments are colluding, that they have these immense pieces of technology, like teleportation. There's that whole flight that went missing in the Pacific Ocean near China that some people believe is proof of teleportation, and the U.S. government intentionally teleported a plane in front of China to say, "Hey, we have teleportation. Be afraid." And it's all ridiculous. A lot of the footage that's being used as proof as well has been debunked entirely, and the evidence of visual effects being used in that footage is clear. So there are things that we don't understand. There are secrets being kept from us by the government, but these conspiracy theories are just too far out there with never any evidence. It's always, I heard someone tell me this once, or some person with a peripheral connection to these government agencies being whistleblowers, even though they have no real reason to be connected to these larger projects. Like an Air Force person who works in logistics saying, "Yeah, I totally know that Area 51 has aliens." Well, was he ever stationed near there? No. Does he have a top secret or higher clearance? No. Has he ever interacted with anyone who does? No. He just worked for the Air Force, and that's enough for some people to give credibility. I don't believe any of that is legitimate evidence. But that's just me. I'm fascinated by conspiracy theories. I love discussing them. I don't believe the majority of them, however. But we can move on from that discussion and go on to something that was a lot of fun. I watched the film Ad Astra for the first time this last week with my wife. It's just a film that I missed when it came out about 6 years ago and never got a chance to watch, but always had it on the periphery as something that I knew I would probably like, and I absolutely did. So Ad Astra stars Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones. It's set in the very near future where we have some space travel. A spacecraft years before, 30 years before, was able to make it all the way out to Neptune. So this is probably 50 to 100 years in our future. But that spacecraft, manned by Tommy Lee Jones, captained by Tommy Lee Jones, disappeared. And his son, Brad Pitt, rose up through the ranks of the space program here on Earth, started working on these very strange towers on Earth that stretch into the stratosphere and perhaps beyond. It's it's a weird technology that they have. It's not practical to have towers that reach that high. They're used for communication. I believe it's a deep space radiological rig that he's working on. But while he's working on it, there's an electromagnetic pulse that comes in and knocks out a bunch of power. And it turns out that there were these strange pulses coming from Neptune that are disrupting Earth technology and threatening human life on Earth and on colonies like Mars and stuff like that. Because of his personal connection to his father, who seems to be at the center of all this, Brad Pitt is recruited to go to Mars and send messages to his father on Neptune to try to figure out what the hell's going on. So that's the framework. There's something crazy coming out of Neptune, and it might be related to Tommy Lee Jones' ship. The story, as presented, is very slow. This is not an action movie. If you expect an action movie coming out of Ad Astra, you're going to be severely, severely disappointed. It's it's character based, and that aligns it perfectly with what I love about storytelling. I want these types of stories, these slow burn, kind of thriller type films. These are right up my alley, but I totally understand why the average person might not be as interested in something like this. It's it's centered around Brad Pitt dealing with the abandonment of his father and finding out that he's sort of becoming his father, abandoning familiar connections, abandoning those he loves for the pursuit of science, in pursuit of the mission, whatever the mission presented is. So he's taken to Mars. He sends messages to his father. It turns out that his father is indeed responsible for these cosmic rays, as they call them, coming from Neptune, and he's refusing to do anything about it. Response from Tommy Lee Jones: the mission comes first at any cost. And his mission, as it turns out, was to try to discover alien life by getting outside the heliosphere to get a clearer picture of the planets in the nearby solar system. With that, I want to talk briefly about the scientific accuracy of the film. It is far more accurate than the majority of Hollywood movies. They do a great job showing no sound in space. There's a rover v rover battle on the surface of the moon where Brad Pitt's rover is trying to make it to a rocket launch, and there's these pirate-like people who are coming in trying to attack him. And that action sequence is absolutely incredible with their use of lesser gravity, capitalizing off the lack of atmosphere, everything like that. Absolutely fantastic. And the propulsion systems used for ships, great. There are some issues, however, like I said, with the giant tower satellite dishes that Brad Pitt's working on at the beginning. I guess you could have a tower that large, but the practicality is so difficult to imagine. And just having something in orbit is far more manageable. I know they want something that's large, but you can build large things in orbit or put it on the moon, build it on the moon or something like that. It's just not practical. That's a big thing with a lot of the technology in this film. It is possible, but impractical. And they mislabel some things like Neptune is sending cosmic rays to Earth, and that's absolutely not something that could be done, especially because it's being caused by the actual ship. So, spoiler alert for the end of the film: once Brad Pitt is able to get out to his father's ship in Neptune's orbit and figure out what's going on, his father became obsessed with this mission: find life outside the solar system. And he forced his crew to stay no matter the cost. People died in conflicts, wanting to just go home. And in a final tussle with the remaining members of his crew, the engine of the ship was damaged, and somehow it's interacting with Neptune to create these cosmic rays that are threatening Earth. And he doesn't care. He's not trying to fix it, or there's some hurdle he can't fix it or anything like that, and he's leaving it with that. He knows he's damaging Earth, but doesn't care. So that doesn't make any sense, and I want more information about that. What is the ship engine? I know I'm the only one who really cares about stuff like that, but they gloss over that fact that a ship engine is able to create particle waves, cosmic rays that threaten human civilization in the entire solar system. That is a big pill to swallow that destroyed my immersion a little bit. Beyond that, the scientific accuracy is phenomenal and the character work is great. Brad Pitt's performance is subtle but deep. His character has an immense control over his bodily functions, over his heart rate. That's a big thing they talk about in the movie. Is even when he fell from that satellite observatory tower he worked at the beginning of the film, his heart rate never went above 80 beats per minute. He's in control of his body. He's in control of his emotions. He's going through constant uh, therapy checks, these wellness checks that he has to do with an automated therapist, basically. And he's steady. But with his performance, you see that that steadiness is a facade, that he is grappling with the loss of his father, grappling with the weight that's being put on him, and the decision to ultimately, when he was on Mars, he was just supposed to talk to his father. But his father sent a message back, and the Space Command realized that Tommy Lee Jones was an antagonist, that he wasn't going to stop, that he wasn't for the cosmic rays. So they tried to send Brad Pitt back to Earth, but Brad, with the help of a local Mars bureaucrat, is able to sneak aboard the ship that's going out to destroy his father's ship, and making that decision, dealing with all of it is fantastic. Brad Pitt is the standout of the film. Of course, he's in the majority of the film, so that helps. There are other issues with it from a writing perspective, though. That scene that I mentioned where he sneaks aboard the ship that's going to go destroy his father's ship, it's ridiculous. So the ship's about to launch from Mars. He's able to sneak through these tunnels, climb aboard, open an airlock right as they launch, and then he gets into the ship. The ship goes all the way up into Martian orbit, and it's getting ready for a stage 2 disconnect, just like you would see a modern rocket do. The crew of the ship just loses their minds. Absolutely loses their mind. They're nice people up to that point, very pleasant with him, seem to like him, play back and forth, but they're suddenly like, we've got to murder him at any cost. And they all unstrap and go at him with knives and guns and whatnot. This is this is only a few moments before that's the second stage disconnect happens and the second stage rockets fire. So they willingly get out of their seats moment before a massive thrust happens, and one of the women flies backwards when that thrust goes off, smashes her head against the back bulkhead, and dies. That's moronic. They suddenly went from scientists, explorers, and technicians, whenever they were, to drooling idiots just consumed by bloodlust. It's bizarre. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't think it works. And then, of course, the other members of the crew are like, "You killed our friend. Oh, we're gonna kill you even harder now." And through an accident, they all choked to death on some sort of air canister that was punctured in the struggle. And Brad Pitt's character, because he's in a full spacesuit with his helmet on, his oxygen is fine. The rest of them all die. It's so bizarre, so contrived, just to get him alone aboard the ship to go confront his father. There's a lot of little issues like that. Overall, I think the film was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I will watch it many times in the future. It is right up my alley. But if you're interested in action, if that's what you're looking for, this is not the film for you. If you want faster pace, this isn't the film for you. It is incredibly slow. It's a slow build, and it's focusing on the environment and the character, just Brad Pitt's performance. He doesn't talk a whole lot, but it's focused on him the entire film. That might not be for everyone, but for people who that doesn't throw you off, I absolutely recommend this film. I had a blast watching it, and will watch it again. I don't know what you all thought. If any of you have seen Ad Astra before, please let me know in the comments. Wiley Dave says everything they taught us doesn't make sense. What in particular doesn't make sense? You mean scientifically? Because there are difficult concepts, but the things that are considered current established scientific consensus, they do make sense, and there is independent research from non-government entities that support these. So I don't know if you have a specific reference to anything, but yeah, I'd be interested to see what you think about that. The last topic I wanted to delve into before we call this a day is the asteroid Bennu. There's some fascinating things going on with the asteroid Bennu. I don't know if you guys have been following that. A spacecraft went to this asteroid several years ago, and the data came back. Some samples came back about 5 years ago, and it was sent to a bunch of different laboratories. Getting the results back from those chemical analysis now, and there's some brilliant things that we covered. Evidence of the building blocks of life. This asteroid shows some of the strongest evidence I've ever seen to show that life outside of Earth is possible. Now, there aren't any corpses of aliens or anything like that. This isn't fossil remains of creatures or anything like that. It is just core components of what we know is required for life on a dead asteroid. It's absolutely fascinating. So let's dive into it. So we're starting out with this article from space.com. NASA discovers space gum and sugars crucial to life in asteroid Bennu samples brought to Earth. I'm becoming more optimistic that we may be able to find life beyond Earth, even in our own solar system. There are many candidates for life in our own solar system, chief among them places like Europa and even Pluto. There could be microscopic life in a lot of these subsurface oceans. It's fascinating. But to find stuff like this in an asteroid is not a place that most people would consider to find these stuff. So let's dive into this a little bit. So, analyzing pristine fragments of the asteroid delivered to Earth by NASA's OSIRIS-REx spacecraft in 2023, a team led by this scientist at the Tokyo University in Japan found ribose, a crucial building block of RNA and glucose, an energy rich sugar used by nearly all life on Earth. So these are the compounds that I'm talking about. I apologize if I got any pronunciations wrong. So RNA is a crucial component of life on Earth. Glucose delivering energy. That's how our bodies process energies through stuff like glucose. And all these things, we haven't found these on any other moons, asteroids, or planets that we've been able to visit. This is astonishing. These building blocks of life, this isn't just liquid water. A lot of scientists focus on liquid water being the core component for life beyond Earth. And it's absolutely an essential one for life as we know it. But of course, we have to realize that life in other planets may very well and most likely does not share many similarities with us. So water may not be a requirement. It's the most likely candidate of known elements and known compounds to be a life-giving element. But this is on such a small microscopic level with this RNA, these glucose and everything like that, and in such quantity. It's not like, oh, we found one trace of glucose. These independent researchers are coming to the same conclusion with these samples and finding an astonishing amount of these chemicals, these compounds. And these sugars complete the inventory of ingredients crucial to life. There's a variety of these available. We're switching over to the NASA article. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I wanted to read this one first. The results suggest that sugars formed inside Bennu's long lost parent asteroid more than 4.5 billion years ago, when pockets of salty water reacted with simple organic molecules inside the rock. The parent body later drifted into the inner solar system, broke apart in the asteroid belt, and eventually reassembled into the rubble pile asteroid now known as Bennu. Yes, this is an asteroid in the asteroid belt beyond the orbit of Mars. And it broke up 4.5 billion years ago. So these traces that we're finding is of ancient life, life that predates life on Earth. 4.5 billion years ago, humanity didn't exist yet. And yet we're finding traces of life that predated us. Switching over to the NASA article real quickly. Sugars, gum, stardust found in NASA's asteroid Bennu sample. So this is a different research collection of samples. So that was the Tokyo results that we were looking at now. This is NASA's results. All five nucleobases used to construct both DNA and RNA, along with phosphates, have already been found in Bennu samples brought to Earth by Osiris, this researcher said. The new discovery of ribose means that all the components to form the molecule RNA are present in Bennu. So there's a lot of things that make up RNA, DNA, and everything like that. But all five nuclear bases used to construct both RNA and DNA have been found. That's absolutely insane. There are all the building blocks to create RNA found on an asteroid, a dead, lifeless asteroid in our solar system. You don't find these core components and not assume that there are compounds of life being made. This is the equivalent of walking into an abandoned hotel room, seeing blood spattered on the wall. You don't find a body, you don't find anything like that, but all the components are there of a person that used to stand in that room before being disassembled. This is strong evidence to alien life having been possible 4.5 billion years ago. Of course, you don't want to go too far with that. These are just the building blocks. There's no corpses, there's no fossils or anything like that. but the building blocks alone are abundant proof that life is possible. Researchers think the presence of ribose and the lack of dextroribose, again, apologize for mispronunciations, support the RNA world hypothesis, where the first forms of life relied on RNA as the primary molecule to store information and to drive chemical reactions necessary for survival. I'm not a microbiologist or anything like that, so my understanding of DNA and RNA is slim. From the way that I understand it, the RNA is a delivery system of information to execute the orders of the DNA blueprints, basically, in our bodies at least. But in primitive life, it was the equivalent of DNA. It was the backbone of life. These researchers believe that all this evidence for RNA compounds and components existing on this asteroid support the hypothesis that a lot of worlds developed RNA first and that it's the initial building block of life. Once soft and flexible, but since hardened, this ancient space gum that was found on the asteroid as well consists of polymer-like materials, extremely rich in nitrogen and oxygen. Oxygen, another core component of life as we know it. Such complex molecules could have provided some of the chemical precursors that help trigger life on Earth, and finding them in the pristine samples from Bennu is important for scientists studying how life began and whether or not it exists beyond our planet. So the space gum that they found, it acts a lot like plastic. So some people are calling it space plastic or space gum, but it has nitrogen and oxygen, which are also two components of life as we know it. So seeing all these different pieces come together, this is a rich source of everything we need for life to exist. It's almost a plethora of information. I tend to lean towards it might be too good to be true just because of the overwhelming amount of material that was found, all this variety of life-giving material found on a dead asteroid. So it might be too good to be true, but it's been independently researched by NASA, by that Japanese university, and so many other places with samples from this Bennu asteroid, and they're all coming to similar conclusions. There's actually a lot more interesting stuff in here as well. There's evidence of watery environment. So there's frozen water remnants, salt tracks found on this asteroid as well. Looking at the chemical makeup, we see the kinds of chemical groups that occur in polythenes on Earth, making the material akin to space plastic, like I mentioned. And there's space dust all over, a supernova dust found on this asteroid as well. An entirely plausible theory with the evidence of the building blocks of life. Salt water remains and supernova dust entirely lends itself to the possibility that this asteroid is from an ancient, more than 4.5 billion years old, watery planet that was destroyed by a supernova. Some of the salty compounds resemble stuff that have been found in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. Watery planet. That's essential for life as we know it. And I keep saying as we know it because there's, of course, the possibility that life exists in other ways that we can't find. But water, liquid water, oceans of water, building blocks of RNA, amino acids required for life, glucose for energy, supernova dust. It looks like a watery planet that was blown apart. So this planet no longer exists. Don't know where in the galaxy it would have been from. The asteroid, the parent asteroid that broke up in the inner solar system, eventually becoming the asteroid Bennu in the asteroid belt, came to us so long ago that there's no way we can predict where in the galaxy it came from. But the location doesn't exist anymore because of a supernova explosion, according to this theory. But if life was possible on this watery planet 4.5 billion years ago, that supports the hypothesis that life is out there, that it might not be overly common, but there's enough to say that there is life out there. It does complicate the Fermi paradox. Why haven't we seen other evidence of life? Perhaps this is also evidence of the Great Filter, where the supernova acted as the Great Filter that destroyed this planet and prevented it from developing more intricate life, more complex life like we find on Earth with DNA and stuff like that. There's no evidence for more complex life like we find on Earth, intelligent life or anything like that. RNA is more primitive or as a secondary thing to work with DNA. It's still the best evidence for alien life that I've ever seen. I think we're going to send another spacecraft to Bennu. We're going to collect more samples, try to get a clearer picture of this watery planet that might have existed. See if we can find fossils. See if we can find more fragments, more building blocks to different kinds of life. I want to end off with this article from EOS. The samples were discovered of life-giving building blocks. Bennu contains many precursor building blocks of life, along with the evidence that it comes from an ancient wet world and contains material that point to Bennu having traveled from the coldest regions of our solar system. So that's saying, yeah, that the asteroid has gone through our solar system in many different ways, coming from the outer edges, like with the Kuiper belt, coming into the closer solar system, breaking apart, and then eventually ending up in the asteroid belt. But this is incredible, in my opinion. I want to emphasize that their findings do not show evidence of life itself, but they do suggest that the conditions necessary for the emergence of life were likely widespread across the early solar system. This, of course, increases the odds that life could have been formed on other planets. So, yes, that caveat from Fox is very important. We did not find proof of life or even evidence of life, but we found so many components that it's not unreasonable to think that life existed in connection to the asteroid Bennu at some point in its history, and that the emergence of life could have been widespread in the early solar system, lending credence to the idea that we might find life on Europa, that we might find life on Titan, or even all the way out in Pluto and subsurface oceans. There's also the theory that life didn't evolve on Earth, that it came from an asteroid. That's a way more fringe idea, but the fact that we found the building blocks for life in an asteroid could lend itself to possibly there was an asteroid or comet that was able to contain early single-celled organisms that crashed into Earth, somehow survived, which is kind of insane, and led to the emergence of life on Earth. That is absolutely fringe theory. It's not supported by a lot of wider scientific community. The fact that these these capsules of life or the building blocks of life are just out there in the galaxy support the idea that something like that could be absolutely possible. The analysis revealed that Bennu samples contain 33 known amino acids, including 14 of the 20 protein building amino acids used for Earth life and 19 non protein amino acids. So this is completely separate from the other stuff I was mentioning with RNA. That there was 14 amino acids, protein based amino acids used by life. 14 of the 20. So with those nuclear bases, the nuclear plastids, all five that were required for DNA and RNA were discovered, and 14 of 20 known protein building amino acids were found. This isn't just some crazy idea. This isn't some, oh, we found water, so there must have been life or anything like that. This is a variety of life building blocks. This is a variety of independently researched samples from across the globe, and they're all coming to the same conclusion. These salt patterns, which the team did not expect to find on Bennu, are consistent with other evidence that Bennu's parent asteroid had enough water for a long enough period of its time, of its past to alter its mineralogy. More evidence that it came from a water planet. Now, the water planet theory isn't the consensus at this point, and it's nothing like that at this point. It is purely a speculation giving the evidence that a water planet source in another solar system is possible, or even a water planet in our own solar system, though the age of 4.5 billion years doesn't lend itself to coming from our own solar system. So I don't know what you all think in the chat. I tend to see this as evidence that life did exist beyond our world. And if it did exist beyond our world, it must still exist somewhere, some way out there in the universe, and we can just discover it. We're at we're at the threshold of becoming interplanetary. With quantum computers, I think that will be an important step to becoming interplanetary. Then, of course, everything with going on with SpaceX and Mars. Then we can eventually become interstellar. It's going to be insanely difficult with the amount of distance between us and our nearest neighbor, Alpha Centauri, or Proxima Centauri for the nearest star itself. We're a ways away from all that. But if we're finding life fragments here, alien life isn't far fetched. It's not implausible. It is absolutely possible. And I am fascinated by this concept and thrilled and intrigued by the possibility that we may find it in our very own solar system. I hope we find more samples like this. We're sending out more probes into the asteroid belt, studying more asteroids, and this is only the beginning. I pray that in my lifetime we get better proof of aliens in this, but every time we get something like this, it's a stepping stone. And I get so very, very excited. Wiley Dave, yeah, Legatus had some real world stuff going on, I guess, so he'll catch the stream on the replay. I think we're gonna bring it to a close here because we have reached the hour mark. I had a great time talking about this stuff. I don't know if any of you are interested in the topics that were discussed. I'm gonna be clipping out sections of this live stream into individual videos on this channel. I hope you guys check those out. And for those who aren't able to watch the stream live, those clips will be available for you. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below if you enjoyed the stream, the format, the topics presented. I know during some of the scientific discussions, our viewership decreased because this was initially a pop culture channel. I knew that was going to be a thing, and a issue, a hurdle for me to overcome, switching the branding from just pop culture to pop culture and science, with the tenuous connection that I'm making between the endless frontiers of creativity and science. I hope it works out, though. I hope you enjoyed this content, and I hope it makes you ask questions. If I get anything wrong, if I got anything wrong, however, in the stream, if any of my science was incorrect, my data was incorrect, please absolutely let me know. That is the only way that we can learn and grow together as a species, by sharing the knowledge that we have. I'm not an expert in anything. I do not claim to be an expert in anything. I'm just an enthusiast. So I welcome any corrections, any expansions on the data that we talked about today, the stories that we talked about, because I want to know more. And if you have information that can help me or anyone in the chat know more, please share it. That is how we grow. That is how we grow wiser as individuals and as species. Thank you, everyone who was able to watch. Thank you to Dr. Rachel, Frank, Wiley Dave, and all the other lurkers out there who weren't chatting. I appreciate all of your support. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend or a wonderful week. I will be live on Wednesday and Friday for more Right or Flight podcast, and I'm going to be gaming Outer Worlds as often as I can. I'll probably go live in about an hour for more Outer Worlds on this channel. Let me actually create that event very quickly and raid you guys over to it. So at about 4 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be streaming Outer Worlds, and then late tonight around 11 or 11:30 p.m., we're going to be doing Doctor Who Cares reviews, talking about the war between the land and the sea. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for that event to be created. Wiley Dave, I will check out Outland. I appreciate it. But if you enjoyed this stream, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. The more support this channel gets, the closer we are to publishing the Endless Frontier novels and going forward into that sphere. You all being here. Until then, have a stellar day and stay curious.